Hi, everybody. Nice to see you all again. It's a windy Miller day outside for me. I don't know what the weather's like where you are, but the winds are blowing, causing lots of friction. So I thought, let's do Gurdjieff's discussion on friction. I've brought the word friction up in quite a few of the shows recently of creating the energies, the different forces coming together, and the friction in between that's working inside us to make all them energies come together so we can develop ourselves. We need that energy. So I thought I would start with life is real, only then when I am. Page 42. The possibility of attaining all three tasks through the forces of the inner world struggle, namely those forces which arise in every person due to an incessant friction between his conscious and the automatic experiencings of his nature. So as we were saying in other shows, we're up against the outside world, obviously working in that every day. And part of this Gurdjieff work is to help us to go forward in the outside world and be aware of what is happening to us from other things. And whilst we're going through this everyday life, we're having our inner struggle with ourselves to do the work as we go about and get distracted by everything that's happening on the outside world. And that is the kind of the battle between our uh, consciousness and everything else that's going on, and it develops that friction, which is the energy that we need. So also from Life is Real, page 65, my usual inner struggle with the lawful refusal of my nature to submit to my consciousness. And we have all the time the distractions that don't want us to do the work, the different eyes that don't want us to do the work, but we must really put that effort in to make ourselves do it, to get all them eyes together, let Deputy Steward come in and collect all our different eyes that are in us that are fighting against doing this work or being a bit lazy, or some of them want to do it but aren't quite wholehearted into doing it and just think, oh, I'll do it tomorrow, terror of the situation, leaving it all till tomorrow. And then we let Genuine Eye comes in once Deputy Stewart's got them all underway so that we can hopefully do the work. But we will constantly be having this throughout our lives. And as we work more and more on ourselves, it becomes easier to do this. We become aware of things happening to us and become aware of what we're doing inside and outside, what we're thinking, what we're feeling, how we're reacting. You know, we want to be acting the right way. And all this is being brought together through the friction that's coming between the two sides within us, that one wanting to do it, one not wanting to do it. So this is from Meetings from Remarkable Men, page 270, I think it was. Conditions in which a man would be continually reminded of the sense and aim of his existence by an unavoidable friction between his conscience and the automatic manifestations of his nature. And your conscience, as we've said before, is the divine spark connection that we have. Our conscience is telling us what's right and wrong. Our conscience wants us to do this. It's our different personalities that are trying to stop us, as well as the outside world. You know, people tell us that we're silly to be going forward and just to live our lives, you know, just accept what's going on in the world and not think that there's anything more to it and what our roles are in the running of the universe. You know, many people are quite happy not to be involved in all that. Let them be. You know, sometimes in this life or maybe in their future lives, they will suddenly begin to realize that there's more to life and start looking for answers. You know, it's not for us to push it upon them. We can offer it, the ideas to them, and if they poo-poo it, let them poo-poo it. You know, they will hopefully come to it at some point in another lifetime. Meanwhile, we want to work in this lifetime, in the now. This is our chance. As Gurdjieff says, it might not come round in our next life if we end up back on this planet, reincarnated into another body. We might not get offered the chances. We might not be aware that there's more to life. We might be caught up in everything again. But hopefully our karma will help us move along. But really, what Gurdjieff was saying was we need to try and do it in this life and get off that will and move on to the next stage of whatever human evolution is after we die. So I'm going to do an all and everything quote. It's a bit of a long one, and it's got some of his strange words in it, which I might pronounced wrongly. So All and Everything, page 1168. Only thanks to this factor, and he's talking about the being part dog duty, only thanks to this factor, being part dog duty, in the process of the blending of newly perceived impressions of every kind in the presences of free brain being, are there crystallized on the basis of the sacred trio masi kamno data for one's own cognizance and understanding proper to the being alone. Trio masi kamno, law of free, wholly affirming, wholly denying, wholly reconciling, transubstantiating me for my being. Right, carrying on with the quote. And likewise, exclusively only during such processes of the crystallization of the data for consciousness in the presences of free brain beings does there proceed what is called Zerno-Fukulananian friction. Zerno-Fukulananian friction, thanks to which the sacred substances abrastonis and helkdonis are chiefly formed in them for the coating and perfecting of their higher parts. We've got some of Gurdjieff's words there. So abrastonis and helkdonis, or helkdonis, are the sacred substances which are coming together when we're working on ourselves, because we're trying to create all these different energies within us, the right energies, not the negative ones, not the ones that slow us down or make us not want to do anything. We're trying to create the energy to give us the impulse to go forward and work on ourselves and develop. And when we get these energies working in us correctly, in the processes, in the laws of three and the laws of seven, the law of three is being talked about here, trio masi kamno. It creates them energies, and he's calling this the Zephno-Falknian friction. So that friction is being created by these energies coming together and developing the right energies, finer quality energies that we need to work on ourselves and create our inner bodies. And we want to perfect them, of course, for our higher centers, our higher bodies, which we will hopefully be connecting with and then going into when we die. But hopefully in this life, if we work on this and create all these energies and this friction, sorry, my hair's stroking my face, creating this friction. So that's a little distraction. My hair is trying to get in the way. It's like my hair doesn't want me to do this. We're creating them higher being bodies for us to work with. We want to connect with them higher centers, so that then we're working with the divine, because, and his endlessness, as God calls him, Gurdjieff calls him, them higher centers, once we're connected with, will be working down to us. They always want a work in, they always want contact with us. It's us that has to reach up to them. It's always an upward thing for us. Remember the cross. If we have the cross horizontal, it's just living our day-to-day lives, you know, in the rat race, the, you know, whatever you want to call it. But we're trying to develop, so we're going upwards to connect the higher beings. So we're going to do a views from the real world, page 98. Education needs time, needs suffering. Life becomes less peaceful. And it does take time for all this to go in. This is why Gurdjieff repeats things over and over again in his writings, you know, because then you're keep remembering it, you keep working on it. It's like it's programming it into you. We don't want to be programmed, but we're trying to program the good qualities inside ourselves, the teaching, so that we can develop and become somebody, become our true selves. So education needs time, needs suffering. Life becomes less peaceful. Between the positive and the negative principles, there must be friction, suffering. Suffering leads to the third principle. Inner result is achieved when everything takes place inside you. And when the outside world is going on, we're going to our jobs, or we're dealing with our families, or, you know, just going shopping, or whatever you do in your day-to-day lives. This is when we're trying to bring the work in and create that friction and them energies. And it's difficult to remember ourselves when we're with other people that aren't interested in this. Not that we shouldn't be with other people. There's nothing wrong with that aren't interested in this work. As I said, Gurdjieff said this work is to help us live in our day-to-day lives and live real lives, live truly, be genuine, people and not just following the program or being made to do things, or like we think we're doing what we want to do, but we're not when we're asleep. But this is helping us to be a bit more awake. And we'll come up against all kinds of frictions and all kinds of suffering, our own personal suffering, seeing the suffering of others, putting up with the suffering that other people put on us when, you know, they laugh at us or poo-poo us for what we're trying to do, or realize that we're changing. Some people don't like to see people changing for the better. You know, they feel like they're being left behind, but then they need to put their effort in if they want to develop. Or maybe by doing the work, you can be helping other people see that they can change too. Many people don't want to change. As Gurdjieff says, people like to suffer. They like their suffering. And change is a big step. And people want easy lives. And the work shows us that life isn't really that easy, because you start seeing that life isn't easy at all. But everybody cons themselves that it is, that are just going about their day-to-day lives and not interested in any kind of development. So we create these frictions, and maybe even between people we create frictions when we're doing the work. I found myself, you know, on a personal note here, you know, I had to let people go as I went through this work, and maybe it would have been good for me to still have them in my life so that I could have that friction, so that I could learn to deal with myself with them and take on the manifestations and not let it affect me of others. But sometimes you do have to let go and move on. As Christ himself was saying, you know, abandon your family to do this work if you have to. If people are getting in your way and really making it difficult for you to do the work, maybe it is time to leave them. You can always come back to them. I don't know, I'm just, you know, thinking here, thinking out loud. You know, I'm not saying go and drop everybody. You know, you've got to decide what people are helping you and what people aren't. And if they're not helping you, or if they're being difficult, but you can see that their difficulty with you is helping you, then that's good. It's helping you. It's suffering and friction coming together. And even with our jobs and things, I myself personally think always find a job that you enjoy, because you're there the majority of your week, your daily week. Try and find something that you enjoy doing. Don't just do any old job just to get the money and pay the rent. Do something that at the end of the day you're feeling is worthwhile. Just my little 2 pence about working. So views from the real world, page 100. Only a conflict between two sides is worth anything. The struggle produces a substance. Gradually, this substance collects in a special place. Only when much is accumulated can something new manifest itself. And it does take time for them energies to work on itself, because, you know, we get distracted all the time and we're not doing the work all the time. We forget, we get lost, we get distracted, and suddenly we forget ourselves. But when we do them little bits of work, the quality versions of the work, it starts accumulating, building up. And like I was saying earlier, as you start working on yourself in a few months, years, I don't know, whatever, it depends on how much you put in, you start noticing the difference and what them energies are helping you to do. And sometimes they stop you doing stupid things, I have to say that. Or sometimes, like, say I was going to, someone annoyed me and I really want to curse them, a little warning sign comes up of, you know, this is a waste of energy. You know, this is not good energy. It's interesting. It's something that you'll probably notice yourself as you go through all this. So views from the real world, page 150. My mind is unable to restrain me from anything, unable to make me feel this or that towards him, but it is able to remember, you need him, so don't be rude to him. Interesting. It could even happen that I would curse him or hit him, but my mind would continue to pluck at me, reminding me that I should not do so. This is precisely what anyone who has a serious desire not to identify himself with his essence can do. Separating the mind from the essence. A serious man, a grown-up man, whatever he decides, whatever problem he has set himself, that problem will always remain in his head. No one can help him in this remembering, in this separation of oneself from oneself. A man must do it for himself. And we do have to do it for ourselves. You know, and I find it interesting where he talks about the mind. You know, I've been discussing this a lot lately over the last few years with various peoples, and even done a few shows about it. And I did a I write for another YouTube channel called Anomaly 101, and I did one about the devil. The devil comes in through our head. The divine comes in through our hearts. You know, our head plays us around. Them little voices that suddenly come in to try and at you, normally the devil, but use him to help you. When that happens, that's when you can think, right, I'm not listening to this voice. What's this voice trying to say? And what should my conscience be saying about it? And work on it that way. As Gurdjieff says, the devil is here to help us, or as he says it, as he called it, the devil is here to help. So a bit of a Spensky now, in Search of the Miraculous, page 32. Fusion, inner unity, is obtained by means of friction, by the struggle between yes and no in a man. If a man lives within inner struggle, if everything happens to him without opposition, if he goes wherever he is drawn or wherever the wind blows, he will remain such as he is. But if a struggle begins in him, and particularly if there is a definite line in this struggle, then gradually permanent traits begin to form themselves. He begins to crystallize. Friction, the struggle between yes and no, can easily take place on a wrong foundation. For instance, a fanatical belief in some or other idea, or the fear of sin, can evoke a terribly intense struggle between yes and no. Wrong crystallization. And I was trying to find in my Maurice Nicole books, because he says somewhere, and I can't find where, but maybe I'll find it for another show, because I've got too many of his books to go through. He's saying it should be yes and no. Always yes and no. Look at it from both sides. And as the great magician Austin Osman Spare used to say, neither, neither. It's both ways. Again, it's that pendulum going back and forth. We want to be in the center of that pendulum. Yes is this side, no is that side. We want to be in the middle where it's still. So this is Views from the Real World, and it's a question and answer session with Gurdjieff. So someone asked Gurdjieff, in what way can one evoke the struggle between yes and no in oneself? Gurdjieff says, sacrifice is necessary. If nothing is sacrificed, nothing is obtained. It is necessary to sacrifice something precious at the moment, to sacrifice for a long time, and to sacrifice a great deal, but only while the process of crystallization is going on. And of course, that's what we're doing with all this energy and all these works in ourselves. We're crystallizing ourselves, but it can be crystallized wrongly if we do it the wrong way, which is why it's really important to read the books to get the real teaching from Gurdjieff as he explains the whole process in his books and how all the different energies come together. He's got a fantastic way of talking about it all. So I'm just going to finish with an Ouspensky session from his record of meetings. You must not calm yourself. You must create an inner struggle between your individuality and your functions. What is necessary is that a certain substance should accumulate in you, a substance that can only be created by struggle. Work, gather, collect the results of this struggle. Sorry, I forgot to turn my phone off. You have in you the accumulators in which this substance can be accumulated, like electricity. It is necessary to create a struggle between your head and your animal. Help yourself with the impulses aroused by outer life. When we struggle internally with the thought, the body, and the feelings, this substance is formed. You will need it. Let it accumulate at the place which corresponds to it. And that is the secret, special, certain place that all the energies come to, is the accumulator in you. And when we're not all awake, when we're asleep and going about our lives day to day, we use the wrong energies and drain the accumulator. Whereas doing this work and doing all these exercises, the Gurdjieff work and the Gurdjieff exercises, we're building up the energy in the accumulator so that it's of a better quality, made from all that friction that's going on in us, and gives us a better way of living our lives, a better outlook. It helps us. So good luck with filling them accumulators. Get them up and running. Take care, everybody. Until next time. Peace.